People who work in high-class restaurants and hotels, what is the most ridiculous stereotypical rich person thing you've ever experienced someone has done? I operated a premium chain restaurant in Canada. One day this Indian gentleman started coming in, at first by himself. On the first day he spent $200 on wine and tipped $1,000. The next day he did the same again. When we saw him the third time, I had servers fighting over him. Anyway, one evening he got drunk on wine, and Brad the busboy made the mistake complimenting his watch. Mr. S takes off his tag and gives it to Brad. The next morning Mr. S comes back to get his car and asks if Brad is there. I say yes and go get him. Brad knows what's up and is removing the watch as he walks over to Mr. S. Mr. S says, "Brad, I'm really sorry I got drunk last night and gave you my watch." Brad is chuckling as he is removing the watch and says it's no problem and he was just holding the watch until Mr. S returned. The next thing Mr. S said, "I could not believe. Brad, you don't understand. I'm sorry because it was very rude of me to give you a used gift." And at that moment Mr. S pulled out a box with a brand new tag heuer inside and handed it to Brad. I've met two celebrities through my various work experiences. Tim Allen requested that we close a small bakery that I worked at for him while he is dining there. We did. He didn't leave a tip. Later in my career I met Mario Batali, famous Food Network chef, and he was the most normal person ever. He took a class with us and then proceeded to pay for everyone else's class that was in his group and bought lunch for the staff as well. I guess both are stereotypical rich person things for vastly different reasons. I interviewed at a large hotel attached to a casino, and while I was being shown around the front desk, a woman walked up, said nothing, and got room keys. After being greeted by the front desk agent, she immediately turned and walked away. Then the manager who was interviewing turned to me and said, "That's Mrs. Recladipants. You never ask her for her name, her ID, or God forbid a credit card. She stays here camped once or twice a week because her husband spends so much in the casino. If you upset her she will yell at you and then hand the person working next to you a $100 bill just to spite you." I ended up turning down a job there, thankfully so, because apparently she wasn't the only guest of her type there. My uncle works at a very upscale restaurant on a very well-to-do and desirable vacation island in the Atlantic Ocean. One of their regular customers is a billionaire oil guy. My uncle has told me he arrives on a yacht that tows a smaller yacht. The smaller yacht is still big enough to have a helicopter. He demands to have his dogs seated at the table and feeds them foie gras and expensive water. When he takes humans to eat, my uncle has never seen him with the same woman twice, and often it's a table of women. If he really liked the meal he will go through the restaurant and, in front of everyone, peel off crisp 100s from a giant roll of money in his pocket and tip every service person, whether they helped or not. One time the owner got a call from health inspectors saying they received a complaint that dogs were seen eating in the restaurant. All the owner did was speak the billionaire's name and the health inspector said, "Oh okay, bye." I worked in a high-class restaurant in a nice hotel, for my town anyway, for a few years. We had a couple come in with their lapdog religiously every Tuesday evening for dinner. Due to health code, they were not allowed to bring their non-service purse poodle into the restaurant. Their solution? Request a special table be set up in a private nook of the hotel lobby so they could dine in style with their fur child. Also, they saw the menu as more of a mix and match situation rather than a thought out, cohesive guide to ordering, with each component of each dish tailored to complement everything else on the plate. They chose whatever sides and sauces on the menu struck their fancy and paired them with their chosen protein, and they often ordered 2 different mix and match entrees each, plus a starter. They always ordered the cheese and cracker board, no crackers, sub-gluten-free bread, double toasted. The lady sent the first round of bread back every time. We could have sent the first round out burnt, and she would have sent it back to be toasted more, or he sent the bread she had just sent back without doing anything to it, and it would be just divine the second time around, and they subbed all 4 or 5 of the local artisan cheeses for brie, which wasn't even one of the cheeses that came on the board to begin with. We started keeping a wheel on hand specifically for them. Oh, and a lightly seasoned grilled chicken breast for the dog. They were polite and delightfully odd, plus they tipped through the nose, so once we got used to most of their quirks, we were more entertained than annoyed and enjoyed their weekly visit. Working nights at a hotel many years back, not super high class, but certainly no budget hotel either. A lady came into reception. I say a lady, because she definitely was. She just reeked of old money. She had a guy in tow, wearing a grey suit. As this was about midnight on a Friday, I immediately clocked him as a chauffeur/aide type deal. No problem, I've seen that before. She asked if we had a room for the night. A decent one please. A suite, ideally. No problem, we had a suite available. I told her the price. As night manager I had the freedom to charge pretty much whatever I liked if it meant making a sale. But for her I charged full price. Screw it, she looked like she could afford it. She didn't bat an eyelid. Then it came to her chauffeur guy. Do you have a servant's quarters for my driver? No, sorry madam. Just the standard rooms. I gave her the price for one of our standard rooms, and she screwed up her face. Oh no, that's too much. Don't you have, like, a staff house or something he could stay in? I'd really rather not spend money on an actual hotel room for him. All this with the guy standing right next to her. I felt really bad for the poor guy, and wondered if this was usual for him. After a few more questions and her considering whether to have him sleep in the car, yes, really, we eventually settled on him having a standard room for rock bottom price, I think about £30 or so. That was as much as she was willing to spend on him, and less than a tenth of what she was paying for her own room. TBH, I'd have given him a room for free, rather than having him sleep in the car, but clearly I had more compassion for the guy than she did. Don't work at any high-class restaurants or hotels, but I currently live in an old yet nice and comfy apartment in Giza, around 20 minutes from the Pyramids complex. The landlady is a very nice old lady, probably in her 60s, and is filthy rich. Last year my car had to be repaired after a minor crash for more than a week, and when the landlady found out from the boabs, doorman, about my situation, she sent one of her English-speaking maids to give me car keys for a BMW 520i, Mercedes-Benz S600, and a brand new Land Cruiser. The madam insists you use her car until yours is repaired. I was shocked, of course, and asked her if she still could go around with her lending this much cars to me. No worry, madam has 12 cars in Al Kahira. Okay, I guess. I ended up only using the Land Cruiser because it's the cheapest one, I think. Another story is, when she knew I would graduate from college soon, she asked me to come visit her place. I did as she asked, and she just gave me a set of keys and some money. Here, I have nice villa in Ain Sokna. Go visit it with friend and family. Food and drinks is on me. I have maids and cooks there. Car you can use mine. The money is for fuel. Happy graduation. I told her that I just couldn't take it, but she just shooed me away and told me to return her keys only after I really visited the villa. Haven't gone to the place yet, but I will soon enough when I have time. Ridiculous, yeah, but in a really good way. I worked for a resort in the Seychelles for 4 years. I have hundreds of stories which would fit this post, but one that stands out was a very wealthy Canadian family who stayed at one of the private residences for a couple of weeks. They brought their own staff including 2 personal chefs, but also asked for a hotel chef to assist their team with prep and local ingredient knowledge. A chef I was friendly with was selected to spend the 2 weeks with them. One day, another member of their staff came down to one of the restaurants and purchased 2 bottles of wine for 11,000 plus euro each. Now we had far more expensive bottles on the list, but this was still a notable sale, and later that night, I asked my mate what they had cooked to accompany the wine. Turns out they had poured both bottles into the pot while making a coq au vin. I've got a pretty good one. I work at a luxury property in California, and we had the co-founder of a large payment processing company stay with us a while back. He only liked to sleep on his own bed, so when he woke up that morning, he paid a team to load his bed into a truck and have it delivered to our property. We then removed the bed in his luxury suite and set up his bed that his team had brought us. He only stayed with us one night, and the process was done to send the bed back home the following day. It kind of blew my mind that he went through all that trouble just so he could always sleep on his own bed. To each their own, I guess. I don't even work at that nice of a restaurant, but last month I got chewed out over the phone because some lady left her baby's actual silver spoon on the table and we didn't know where it was, so obviously one of us had stolen it. Late to this party, but I have a positive one to throw in amidst all the negative. I'm loosely acquainted with someone who is obscenely rich. He dated my best friend for a while back when we were in college. As you can imagine, he bought her fancy things all the time, took her on expensive family vacations with his folks, etc. etc. He was a stereotypical rich kid, but he was also kind and still very down to earth. They dated about a year, and in the spring we went spring breaking in his family's condo at a famous spring break beach location, and there was just me, my best friend, him and a couple of his friends. The group decided we wanted good old-fashioned Waffle House breakfast after a night of revelry. After eating, I noticed he was lingering behind the group. He'd said he had to take a leak, but he stopped back by the table on his way out to the car. Curious, I ran back to the restrooms, just so I could pass by the table, to see what he'd done. He left the waitress a small pile of Benjamins as a tip. Had to be $400 or $500. I couldn't quite tell, because they were folded and rumpled from being in his wallet. My mouth fell open when I saw it, and I forgot I was even heading to the restroom. I looked out by the car, and he was watching me through the glass windows, held up his finger to his lips mouthing, "Shh," and beckoned me back out to the car. I didn't tell, but my eyes were glued to the table as we pulled away in his car. The waitress collapsed into the seat of the table when she saw it. Pretty sure she was crying. Letting that guy get away was the dumbest thing my best friend ever did in her life. Ordering $150 caviar to go for their cat. I'm a cocktail server at the huge pool of a 4-star hotel. A woman said in a monotone voice, and without any eye contact, "I lost my sunscreen. Find it." I worked at a nice restaurant in downtown Portland, and one day a lady called to make a dinner reservation for a large group. But first she starts asking all these questions about security, we had none, and how I thought the staff and patrons would handle a celebrity dining there. Is there enough space to be private? They like to be private. Would it be okay if they brought their own security to stop people from taking pictures and such, etc. But of course, she couldn't name names. I rolled my eyes, told her whatever they need to do, and booked the date and time. Yes, I was super curious who it would be, and stayed past my shift to see who walked through the doors. When the big night came, the group arrived, and it was no one. Not one of us who worked there recognized a single member of their party. They sure acted like they were someone, but all we saw was a loud group of douchey looking 20-somethings. They actually did bring a bodyguard who stood in the corner with sunglasses on the whole time. The only attention they got from other diners was the occasional side eye, because they were being such rude and obnoxious holes. Shock of shocks, they treated our staff horribly, and tipped even worse. We'll never know who that person thought they were. Worked at a grocery store in uppity Gold Coast, Chicago, when I was a teen. We sold soup for lunch, and when bagging them, we put it in a paper bag followed by a plastic bag, to make sure it's secure. Lady buys a soup. I proceed to bag the soup and she says no, I'll just put it in my bag. I say, "Ma'am, are you sure?" Mind you, she has a Louis Vuitton bag that looks brand spanking new. 15 minutes later she comes in raging that she has minestrone all over her Louis Vuitton and demands to speak to a manager. SMH.